What's good, Elevators? It's your boy Elevation here with another episode of the JBP Elevated, where we speak on the Joe Budden podcast and all of his co-hosts on and off the pod. So episode 874 came out today, and I wanted to speak on the state of the Joe Budden network and podcast as a direct result of firing Rory and Mal on episode 437. Nobody thought he would make it this far. Everybody thought the podcast was going to falter because they didn't know the direction he was going in. And shout out to Rory and Mal as well. They've been able to stay afloat. I'm not going to say thrive. They have been successful. They've signed multiple deals as a result. And they still have a pod that's afloat. But Joe, he has been able to make way more money this duration than he ever did in the first duration, and he hasn't signed with anyone outside of Prize Picks. Now, in the eyes of many, they're going to say that he's super successful as a result of this, but there's a beef that's currently brewing that only a couple of people have spoken on and only a couple of people see. The rant that we received from Spotify, or when Joe was with Spotify and it was time to re-up, we're about to see a similar rant happen with his Patreon. And he's trying to remain quiet on it, but they're doing a lot of the same tactics that Spotify did. Remember when Spotify, or when Joe hit all the bonuses at Spotify, and they were trying to give him watches? And then when they picked out watches, they didn't even want to give him those watches. They wanted to give them used watches. I see the same thing happening with Patreon. Joe has found a way to get his audience to not fund his livelihood, but to support his ventures. And Patreon sees that. And they'll go around and tell the world that Joe is the highest paid platformer or creator on the platform, and to come sign with Patreon as a result. They're making a huge push. They're getting more people to sign up. They're making more partnerships. I'm seeing them push everything they possibly can on that platform. And Joe just recently let it slip that he's not getting paid in the manner that he feels he should. He's underpaid. I took that as, damn, Patreon's not giving him anything. They promised him equity. And that was what he was wanting so much from Spotify, because you could kind of see Spotify's numbers. You could see what it is that they're doing. You could see who they're in cahoots with. You could see the contracts that they lay out. So you could kind of pry at what it is that they're doing. But what happens when you're with a startup company that's in essence building themselves into the same thing as a Spotify, but they don't release any of their numbers? They don't release any of the creator contracts that they have and partnerships that they have. But we're stringing you along, and we're using you as the face to pull other creators in. I find it funny that they're the ones sponsoring all these billboards. We're trying to get pushes into the Grammys. And what does that do? Well, not the Grammys, but the Golden Globes, the Emmys. What does that do for Patreon, the platform? And what happens when they're able to obtain all these things on the back and behest of Joe, and then when they reach it, they don't have to do a goddamn thing for Joe? What happens when, like Joe said, he wanted equity in the next company that he got into? What happens when they never go public? Yeah, Joe, you have a percentage of the company. And if you decide to ever leave said company, we'll give you whatever we deem that percentage to be. This is all speculation and conjecture, of course, but we have a whole bigger story brewing than Spotify could ever reach, because what happens when you get equity and they won't ever tell you the true value of said equity? Or even worse, and I don't even want to speak this into existence, what happens when Patreon does give him a percentage and they do go to IPO and somehow they finagle in the contracts and the paperwork his 5% stake turning into a 0.005% stake? You know how these people play. You know how they play. We've all seen Social Network. We're going to use you to build our platform up. And in the meantime, we're going to quote unquote prop you. But in propping you, we prop ourselves. The same dilemma that I always say Joe places all the new hires in, he's being placed in himself. I always want people to continue making their own content. I want Flip to create his own content. I want Ice, Ish, Mark, Mona, Mel, hell, Parks even. Everybody continue creating your own content, because that's going to help Joe get to where he needs to get in the long haul, as long as you still remain or retain ownership of your own shit. It doesn't matter who's getting the boost. That's the same thing that's happening to Joe. He's employing everybody to create Patreon. His whole team to create a Patreon. Imani, Mark. Guys, I anticipate a huge rant incoming. Stay on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, I done got completely sidetracked. This whole thing started from Joe reaching 874. That's 437 more episodes after losing Rory and Mal. I have elevated in the eyes of the public. I caught my Ferrari. I copped new estates. I've been able to hire more employees because I figured out the independent model. But what happens when the people that I put all my faith in to exponentially ascend, them and me, what happens when they're on the same shit that all these other corporations end up on? Selfish and greedy. We're going to see a different animal. We're going to see a different beast. Guys, this Patreon money increase, I don't think this is for Joe being greedy. This is a play at Patreon. This is a play at Patreon. We just got to remain, I guess we just got to pay attention. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, though. How do y'all feel this iteration of the Joe Budden podcast is opposed to the initial iteration of the Roy Mal and Joe and Parks era? I'm not going to say which one's better. I'm just happy that Joe is still thriving, but unfortunately, the very issue that Joe was facing at around 420 through the 437 mark, he's facing right now with a completely different company. The one that he went to and thought he had achieved independence with. People say this shit to me all the time. Yeah, you got your own channel on YouTube, but what happens when you don't own your shit on YouTube? Because YouTube owns it. Until we create our own platforms and build them up the way we do all these other platforms, it's going to be the same game. They're going to run the same game, pull the cloak over our eyes, and we're not going to know the wiser until it's too late. And I'm afraid that Joe's going through it right now. So I'm going to start paying attention to the business dealings way more so between him and Patreon than anything else that Joe mentions. Anything else. Because it all falls in line with the company at the end of the day. But y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the page if you have it. If you have, you already know how we rocking. You already know what it is. See y'all tomorrow. Peace.